After my last video where I took a look at WWF games released for the Amiga, it sure had its ups and downs. Wrestlemania had to be my favourite out of the three I covered in that video. Micro League Wrestling had a great concept but just didn't deliver, and European Rampage Tour? Well, that was something else. I'll leave a link in the description for anyone interested in checking that video out. But now it's time to move on. It's time to take a look at WWF games released for the Nintendo Entertainment System. I hope you enjoy. First up is WWF Wrestlemania, which I originally thought was the first WWF licensed game to ever come out. That's why I had to cover WWF games on the Amiga first to get Micro League Wrestling out of the way, before jumping into these. It was released in January of 1989, developed by Rare and published by Acclaim. This game would actually mark the beginning of a long relationship between the WWF and Acclaim, which lasted 10 years, and we definitely seen a few crap WWF games in that time. The game was released a few months prior to the 5th annual WrestleMania, a great way to promote a pay-per-view I guess. So let's see what it has to offer. On to the intro where we see a digitized version of Hulk Hogan the same way as seen on the box and cartridge. I don't know, he looks kinda messed up to me. Oh, and there we have it, the game's tagline. Bigger, better, badder? Is that even a real word? Let's hope it's not badder than European Rampage Tour on Amiga, because that game was a complete mess. From here you decide what mode you want to play, standard matches or tournament. I went for tournament mode, which is the game's story mode. Enter your hilarious word to use for your name, and now you can choose the wrestler you want to play as. There are 6 superstars to choose from, and they reflect that era of wrestling well. These include the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase, who bears an uncanny resemblance to Michael McDonald. That's a throwback. I haven't mentioned him in a video for ages now. Next up we have Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, Randy Macho Man Savage, Honky Tonk Man, and Bam Bam Bigelow. I had to go for the cover star here and I picked Hulk Hogan. Now it's time to wrestle. With the NES controller only having 2 buttons, you can imagine there isn't many moves you can pull off. Depending on the wrestler you pick, A and B will pull off punches and kicks, and holding down A and B together will pull off a body slam, but only depending on who you're playing as. I guess Rare's way of trying to make the moveset seem more in depth was by giving some wrestlers moves they can pull off that others can't. This can get really confusing though, because they don't just allow you to pull off certain moves, they also change the buttons around for each wrestler. For example, when playing as Hulk Hogan I press B and either up and down to pin. If I was playing as Bam Bam Bigelow, I'd need to do the same, but instead of pressing B, it's A for some reason. Some wrestlers can pull off high flying moves from the top turnbuckle. Good luck trying to get it to work though. According to the manual, I have to run towards the turnbuckle and press B at the right time. It just never seems to work though. Even the manual started to mug me off. It takes perfect timing and some getting used to. Piss off. There is an energy bar for each wrestler that you must drain to be able to get a full free count on them. You can drain your opponent's energy bar by pulling off moves, but also be mindful that pulling off moves yourself can also drain your own energy bar. There are energy boosters you can collect that scroll across the top of the ring that resembles a part of your wrestler's gimmick. For example, Honky Tonk Man has little guitars, Bam Bam's is fire, and Hulk Hogan's are Jesus crosses. The manual describes them as golden crosses, must be due to censoring or something, but you can clearly see it's Jesus crosses. Say your prayers and take your vitamins, brother. The difficulty while playing through the career mode ramped up big time in just the second match. I came across Bam Bam and he kicked my ass over and over and over again. Keep in mind if you lose a match, it's straight back to the main menu for you. Honky Tonk Man was a pain in the arse too. He had this back facing attack where he'd just land a load of back elbows rapid, and there's no way to avoid this. There was also a few occasions where I'd cheat my way through a match by getting them to the ground, and just when they're about to get back on their feet, I'd land a kick sending them straight back down again. When the cards are decked against you, what you gonna do, brother? I can't be arsed getting sent back to the main menu and doing all this again. Sometimes your opponents aren't even interested in wrestling with you. Ted DiBiase was just running about like a headless chicken in a match I had with him. Get back here, you little bastard! Get back here! You also have to get linked up pixel perfect to pull off a move, or even strike your opponent. There was a couple of occasions where we were both striking at nothing, which can be frustrating at times considering this lowers your energy bar too. Once you defeat all 5 opponents, you win the belt and that's it. The game is filled with music. There isn't a single section where there is no audio playing. When you're in a match, you'll hear the wrestler you're playing as and your opponent's theme song in a loop. Not at the same time though, thankfully. I heard an 8-bit rendition of Hulk Hogan's theme song so many times during my playthrough that it's going to be stuck in my head for days now. However, I am glad they included wrestlers' music while in matches to make up for the fact there is no crowd. It just looks like an empty dark room you're wrestling in. All in, it's not one I'd be quick to revisit. The lack of gameplay mode gives me not much reason to. To be fair though, it's a half decent start to the WWF games for the NES. If you want something similar to this, I'd definitely suggest checking out the first WWF game for the Nintendo Game Boy, WWF Superstars. I surprisingly enjoyed that while reviewing the games on the Game Boy. WWF Wrestlemania Challenge was the next game to come out on the NES. Releasing in November of 1990, developed by Rare and published by LGN. There may have been a few wrestlers on the box, but your main title screen wrestler is an overly jacked Ultimate Warrior. He looks terrifying. The game has an impressively larger selection of modes to choose from. You have your usual single player, along with 2-player, but also 2-player versus computer. This time round you have 9 wrestlers to choose from. These include Macho King Randy Savage, Ultimate Warrior, Ravishing Rick Rude, Brutus Beefcake, Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, Big Boss Man, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and yourself? I don't remember him. Oh wait, as in myself. I haven't seen a hairline like that in well over a decade now. I thought I'd take the poster boy for this game, the Ultimate Warrior, through the career mode. From here you pick how many wrestlers you want for your team. I thought this was a bit odd for a career mode. Felt more like a traditional Survivor Series type style it was going for. I guess that makes sense, and that's why after a little bit of research I found out that this game was originally going to be named Survivor Series. I guess they kept all this stuff in just to make it come across a lot more packed than it is. At this stage though, I also noticed you can't take a normal wrestler through the career mode. If you want to go through the career mode, or the super challenge as the game calls it, you have to choose the yourself wrestler. But I wanted to play as the Ultimate Warrior. So I went back and picked yourself and whoa, this looks different. Visually, it looks fantastic. The wrestlers are easily distinguishable, a crowd too which is an added bonus. The ring itself looks great, nice touch with having the energy meters on each side of the ring with this isometric view. Oh, also, while on the subject of this isometric view, I think that's why this game absolutely sucks. I found it near enough impossible to land strikes and grapple moves because of this. I said it was a problem in the last game I just covered, but this is a whole new level. Trying to wrap my head around what button on the D-pad to push to get me going in the right direction really threw me off. Pressing up makes you go northeast, pressing right makes you go east-south, etc. It's hard to keep up while your opponent is actively trying to escape you by running round like an arsehole. If I wasn't getting my ass handed to me, both myself and my opponent were just running round like a pair of fannies. From the few moves I did pull off, and the large selections of moves I've seen my opponents pull off on me, it definitely would appear to have a larger variety of moves compared to the previous game. It's just a shame I'm absolute pants at it. The closest I got to winning a match was my first one against Beefcake. I got his energy bar halfway down, I decided to go for an aerial move, and ended up jumping outside of the ring by mistake, and I couldn't figure out how to get back in. And I got counted out. I swear I was absolutely scrambling to get back in. Also, because I kept getting my arse handed to me, I seen this animation a lot. Well done, boss man, you absolute knob jockey. It just seems a bit over the top to be jumping around like that. It's a real shame because I think this game does have a lot to offer, if only I could get past this isometric view. There is a good variation of moves that can be pulled off, everything looks great, but I just can't get into it sadly. Next up, WWF Wrestlemania Steel Cage Challenge. Released in 1992 and developed by Sculptured Software and published by LGN. This time it's Hulk Hogan greeting us on the title screen looking cheesier than ever. Jeez, look at that face. The game has a few modes to choose from, 1v1, tag team, tag championship and single player championship mode. Let's jump into single player championship mode like normal. There's a decent sized roster to choose from here. I like how they increase as the games go on. I'm actually really looking forward to this one. The presentation so far is giving me good vibes. The wrestlers to choose from here are Hulk Hogan, The Undertaker, Jake Roberts, Ted DiBiase, Randy Savage, Bret Hart, Sid Justice, Roddy Piper, IRS and the Mountie. For the most part they look decent, but check out The Undertaker. He looks like Sloth from the Goonies. While hovering over each wrestler, you get a nice little rendition of their theme song. Some sound better than others though. Undertaker's was spot on. But if you had me listen to IRS's theme, I'd be clueless. Before each match, you have announcer Howard Finkel introduce you to the ring while your entrance music plays. This has got me hyped. Now into a match and holy shit. What the hell am I even looking at here? The models for the wrestlers look terrible. Don't get me wrong, I'm loving that old school WWF logo plastered in the middle of the ring. I mean, even the ring itself looks great, and I much prefer this view while playing a wrestling game of this style, but the character models look like shit. I'm going to persevere with this one though, because I think it might have potential. The wrestler's health or strength bars are displayed at the top. Like any wrestling game, you want to deplete your opponent's bar to get the free count on them. You use the D-pad for controlling the direction of your wrestler, A for punches, B for kicks. Holding down A and B together allows you to run. While running, you can pull off a small variety of moves depending on if your opponent is standing or on the ground. To be honest though, I was rarely able to pull off running moves. You can defend running attacks by holding down A and B together, but again, I could rarely pull these off too. Sadly, there are no finishing moves in this game. I tried for ages to figure it out and eventually had to check a guide online. For the most part while playing this, I didn't really get a fluent feel for the controls. Everything just seemed too stiff. Like you can initiate a grapple by simply walking into your opponent. I found by tapping A or B you'd pull off some sort of power slam move or throwing move, but I didn't find it necessary to risk going for it half the time in case my opponent got a free shot on me. It's important to keep an eye on your energy meter. If it's lower than your opponent's, they'll always beat you when in a tie-up to pull off a grapple move. If your energy bar does get too low though, you do have the opportunity to regain some of it by pressing the select button, but you can only do this once during a match. Now let's talk about the main selling point of the game here, the steel cage. Across the championship mode you'll have 3 cage matches. It's pretty much the same as a standard match. It didn't really add anything new to be honest. I just wish I could figure out how to Irish whip my opponent into the cage. You're supposed to hold down A and B while in a tie-up, then press forward or back, but I just couldn't get it to work. To win these matches you have to drain your opponent's meter so they stay down, then just hold the direction in which you want to leave the cage and you'll start climbing to the top. It's really weird though, because if yourself or your opponent get up while either of you are trying to escape, you'll just flop back down onto the canvas. I think they could have made this a bit more intense by having you or your opponent shake the cage to get them to fall. As good as the music sounds for each wrestler, the crowd does not. That is all you hear throughout matches. After you've beaten all 9 opponents, you win the belt and you're straight back to the title screen. All in, it's not one I'll be revisiting again. Cool for if you're into the evolution of WWF video games like myself, but I have no need to ever play this again. Here's the final game for today's video and the final WWF game released for the NES, WWF King of the Ring. Released in November of 1993, developed by Grey Matter Inc. and published by Acclaim Entertainment. Now I know I've covered this game already on the channel, but that was the Game Boy version, and if anyone's seen that video you'll already know how terrible that game was, so I really hope the NES version is a much better experience. Oh, for God's sake, I'm already getting flashbacks to how terrible the Game Boy version was of this game. The main menu is pretty much the same. You've got one-on-one, tag team, tournament, and King of the Ring. Seeing as the game is called King of the Ring, let's go for that mode. Now on to the character selection screen. You've got Bret Hart, the Narcissist Lex Luger, Shawn Michaels, Mr. Perfect, Razor Ramon, Macho Man Randy Savage, Yokozuna, Hulk Hogan, The Undertaker, Bam Bam Bigelow, and you. The pictures for these wrestlers look horrendous. Check out Razor Ramon. You also get to hear the theme music for each wrestler too. Just like the other game, some sound better than others. Mr. Perfect sounds great. But check out Shawn Michaels. You also have some stats on screen for each wrestler detailing their height, weight, speed, strength and stamina. Nice added details, but I can't imagine they make much of a difference. You get a nice rundown of who is in the King of the Ring and then you're straight into the matches. Well, it's definitely safe to say it looks a whole lot better than the Game Boy version. You control your wrestler with a D-pad. Pressing A pulls off punches while pressing B delivers kicks. You can pull off grapple moves by walking towards your opponent to initiate a tie-up. From here, A and B or A and B along with left or right on the D-pad will pull off a body slam, headbutt, throw or suplex. I've finally managed to pull off an aerial attack successfully in this video. You simply walk over to the turnbuckles and your wrestler will automatically begin to climb the ropes. The animation of your wrestler pulling off an aerial attack is so slow though. Sort of reminded me of those My Sacrifice videos that WWF used to put out back in the day where they'd slow down high spots for that added dramatic effect. There are crowd sound effects, but only when a move is being pulled off. If there's a moment where there's nothing going on, there's just an awkward silence. I don't think the wrestlers themselves look all that great, but gameplay wise this has been my favourite yet, which to be honest, I found pretty surprising. The action seems a lot more quicker than the other games I've played and I managed to get through the King of the Ring mode in about 10 or 15 minutes. However, I don't think there is a reason for me to play this again. I definitely suggest giving it a bash though if you have some time to kill. Now that brings me to the end of the video. I think a lot of these games suffer from the same issues. Not enough variation in movesets and also not including finishers, at least from what I've seen anyway. I know they tried their hardest with masking over these limitations by slightly changing button combinations for each wrestler in one game, but that just came across as really annoying. Also, the lack of game modes is pretty off-putting, but I guess they done their best with what they had. I'm glad to say I finally gave these a bash though. I had already played the first game before, but that was 20 plus years ago now, so it felt pretty new to me again. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you didn't, feel free to dislike. If you did like it though, please consider giving me a sub. It's free and it helps the channel grow and reach a wider audience. Also, leave a comment. I'm always interested in hearing other people's opinions of the games I cover and enjoy interacting with folk. That's all for today then, so I'll hopefully catch you in the next one. See ya!